Alright guys, I start all of my videos just looking a little bit rough. Anyways, hello. I basically wanted to make this video because I recently filmed a lot of videos talking about like apologetic stuff, because I watch a lot of like apologetic debates, videos, topics on YouTube. Like, I find that topic really interesting. But for people who see a lot of my videos talking about it and they're confused, let me just explain what's going on. So, I just find like the these debates to be very interesting personally. And apologetics typically are just, you're arguing your worldview, essentially. And I feel like, the ones I typically watch, because I feel like I've made a lot of videos with atheists in the title, and I feel like it maybe comes across, and I feel like this is why I would make this video. I feel like I truly have trouble, and this is the same way Alex O'Connor made that video talking about, I tried to believe in God and I couldn't find proof. Well, this is my response. I have trouble understanding being an atheist, like, legitimately. Not in like the actual, like, I can understand when people claim why they don't believe in God, but when people claim they don't believe in God because, and they claim it as if like it's just so obvious God doesn't exist, I don't understand that. I understand doubting, you know. Well, what do I really want to say? I feel like doubting, where is my iPad? My iPad. I can't find my iPad. Here it is. I understand, you know, the different reasons people leave church, right? Because they're also, I do think that there is somewhat of a trend where a lot of people leave a religious group they grew up in and become atheists. But I've also seen people who grew up atheists and become Christian. And so these are two basically different sides of I don't know. They're two different viewpoints, right? So there's people who grow up not believing in God and later believe in God. There's people who grow up believing in God and later choose to not believe in God. I think my biggest problem is that a lot of atheists assert that their opinion as atheists is more logically sound or better than, or as if their thought process is supposed to be the norm or is the most rational or is this the most logical. You know, this assumption that being an atheist makes you more intellectual or makes you more logical or makes you more rational. And I feel like that's what I'm typically arguing against, not the, you know, every individual atheist is just, you know, a horrible person. I'm saying, like, when it comes specifically to apologetics, which is arguing your belief system, your worldview with logic and reason, it always comes across when I see the atheist in these videos arguing. And a lot of times, you know, I will say this, it does seem like, in my opinion, you see a lot of religions or non-religious people specifically attack Christianity. Like, I don't hear atheists make fun of or mock Muslims. I mean, some of them maybe mock Jews, but a lot of atheists are most comfortable mocking and making fun of Christians for their beliefs, and, you know, have this idea in their head that, you know, it's okay to disrespect Christians for their beliefs, essentially. And I feel like I see that a lot, especially with people who are atheists who grew up in Christian households that really try to mock and make fun of Christians for their beliefs or whatever. And obviously that comes from like projection. And also, like, I talked about church hurt, you know, people who went through abusive things in church and that tainted their view of God. And that's understandable to me from like just logically sound. Like, you associate your trauma, your pain with the religion. And I've addressed that before. But I think my biggest, I guess, take on it, and I also just want to specify because I had a lot of people comment on the other videos I made talking about like atheism, atheist worldview, and I really was responding to like, I linked the video in the last video I want to say the last video I made talking about it, I linked it because it was like Frank Turek using like dismantling like basically this atheist argument over, you know, intelligence and morals and everything. And I really do think like it's really good conversations to listen to, I feel like, as a Christian, because it gives you more of like just a logical standpoint for like why belief in God is necessary for us to trust our own intelligence. And I also think too, even Jordan Peterson, which I think he was respected until he started not following, you know, what society at large believes he needs to, his ideals didn't align with, you know, whatever societal norms are pushed, and suddenly people didn't like him. But before that, he was very well respected psychologist in his field until he voiced an opinion that was unpopular or whatever. But Jordan Peterson had made basically a video talking about how science started within the church, actually, because people in church believed, you know, we were created in the image of God. If God was intelligent enough to create the earth and the world around us, that gave human beings the idea that it was possible for them to also understand the world around us. So like science began actually from Christians. At least that's what he said in the video. And I didn't watch the full thing. I think it was like a series, and it was multiple parts. So I didn't watch it. I just remember like hearing some bits and pieces of it. And that's essentially what they were asserting, is like science got its beginnings actually from people in church who believed they could understand the world around us because they believed they were created in the image of God. And if God is the creator of the heavens and the earth, he has to be pretty intelligent. So it's like their belief that we could understand was based on believing that they were created in the image of God and could understand. Because, by the way, that's also an important thing in the Bible that is stated to separate humans from the rest of the animals. Like, we're the only living things that God claims he created in his own image. And so when people are questioning, I mean, and as far as science knows, they have no idea how humans developed the intelligence that we have. That's something that science hasn't been able to find the answers for that. And I'm just saying, as a Christian, it's like, well, the Bible actually answers that, because it tells us he made us in his own image. He didn't make the other animals in his image. So he gave us the ability to create the way that he also created the world, which is why humans make things and invent things and can do all of these things that we don't see any other animals doing. And I feel like atheism, I don't know. Someone said I'm conflating atheism with science, but I also think too, I hear a lot of atheists use science as a way to say, like, that's why they don't have to believe in God. So I'm trying to understand, like, is there something else atheists believe that I'm not aware of? Like, I thought most atheists just trust whatever science tells them is correct. If I'm wrong about that, please correct me. Like, I really, like, I can be educated, but as far as I was aware, it seems like the most prominent atheists are all in scientific fields, as far as I know. I mean, some atheists are just debaters or whatever, but like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Stephen Hawking, these are all prominent atheist scientists. So, and I guess, like, at the end of the day, I can't say what every atheist believes the same way. Well, I honestly think, like, the Bible should tell you what every Christian believes, but not every Christian believes the Bible. That's another story. Anyways, so basically, based off of what science says about intelligence, there's no real reason for the quote-unquote intelligence, which was trying to also explain in my last video. Like, if you believe evolution, and this is where I feel like a lot of my viewpoints come from, because the evolution theory is the basis of atheism in a lot of ways. It's like the worldview is based off of these two scientific theories. The Big Bang, evolution theory, are the current scientific explanations for how the world began and how life began. And so I honestly think people don't realize I'm not arguing against the inventions that people make. Like, I'm not arguing against technology that exists in our world. I'm arguing against the world view. That is the stance. Because like I said, it's really more from an apologist standpoint, not from, like, nitpicky specific things. Like, I'm not saying I have something against science. I have a scientific background, my degrees. Actually, I have a pseudoscience degree, because I studied psychology, which is considered a pseudoscience. Anyways, it's a BS, and I think I mean it in both ways. It's a Bachelor of Science, and it's also BS. Anyways, what was I saying? So, I'm arguing not from a standpoint of, trying to say every atheist thinks the same way. It's more talking about, as an atheist, you don't have a belief in God. So when you are thinking about the beginning of the world and how we come to exist, where does the meaning come from? And everything that they will tell you is subjective. There's not an objective truth to an atheistic standpoint, to that standpoint as an atheist, because you either are going to have to say, well, I believe what science says, right? The scientific theory surrounding that, which, by the way, a scientific theory is not proven. And that's the other thing I was trying to basically touch on. Like, the theory of evolution is somewhat pseudoscience as well. And so is the Big Bang Theory. These are pseudoscientific. Why? They're not observable. They're not measurable. You can't do an experiment to test the Big Bang Theory. You can't do an experiment to test evolution, because according to science, you need billions of years, and what human being exists for billions of years? So these are all, and that's why I said it takes faith to believe in science, because to believe evolution or to believe in the Big Bang, you have to have faith in something that you did not see, you did not observe, you don't know for a fact actually happened. You just strongly believe it did. That's faith. Hate to break it to y'all, that's still faith. And if you're saying you don't have faith, you only believe the things that science says is proven, well, then you also have there's such a limit to what you can actually believe to be true. Basically, you only believe things that you know already exist. But I also think even that is not true. Anyways, I feel like I have tried to understand the atheist worldview. And for me, it really just comes down to, I cannot get behind the idea of observing the intelligence and technology that exists within our own world. I'm not talking about the things human created. I'm talking about the planet as a whole. There is way more technology that exists within our earth, that exists within the world around us, than anything humans have created. And it sounds weird because people don't think of the planet or even ourselves. The human body is probably the most advanced piece of technology in existence, but we don't view ourselves as technology, right? We don't view our way, but we have an entire system of things, these tiny neurons firing, like everything that's keeping you alive is technology, but we don't think of ourselves as technology. But there's more intelligence within our human body, right, than anything that we've actually created. I think humans are attempting to create things. I feel like that's where AI comes from, our attempt at creating intelligence, and other things. But at the end of the day, I feel like to observe the world around you, to go to the mountains and to the oceans, or just go anywhere and like look outside and you look at all of the amazing things that exist on the planet, and you really can just think to yourself, all of this came to exist out of nothing, out of nowhere, and at random. I don't understand how you can truly believe that at your core. And I do think that is where I feel like I can't be an atheist for that main reason. That's honestly the reason I can't be an atheist. I cannot look at the world around me and just think to myself, wow, what a random thing for all of this to just exist. For the trees, for the plants, for the animals, the sun, the moon, the stars, the ocean. I feel like every time I look at the ocean, I think, wow, God, you created such an amazing world. Because humans didn't create the earth. That's why I'm just like, and it's also just goes to the notion, like, everything, every object around us had to be created, right? Someone created this pillow. This didn't come to exist out of nothing, out of nowhere, right? We don't argue that this little pillow came to exist out of nothing and nowhere. This is a simple thing. It's some fabric, some stuffing, a little sewing, colors, whatever. But we don't argue that that came to exist out of nothing and nowhere. But people literally argue the entire universe came to exist out of nothing and nowhere. How does that make sense? I can't get behind that. Personally, that's where I can't figure out how people actually believe that. Like, I truly can't understand that mindset of, everything in our world that we have, we created. Everything that human beings created took intelligent design, right? But the infinitely times more complex, intricate, all of these laws, mathematical things that had to take place for our entire universe, solar system, everything to work together for us to be alive. Like, it just so happens trees give off oxygen and take in CO2, and we give out CO2 and take in oxygen. The symbiosis of all of these things on the planet that work together. How can you really believe that's just random evolution? And why would we assume that these things that are all necessary for life to exist just so happen to exist at random? I feel like, logically speaking, you're not going to say everything necessary for life just randomly came together out of nowhere so that we could exist. You would argue that someone created that with the purpose of us existing. I think that's a more logical explanation. It's like everything at random for life to exist just all came together on its own. No one thought it out. No one designed it. There's no design. No intelligence created it. Just random. Just random out of nowhere. That's the Big Bang Theory, by the way. I hope people realize that's essentially what the Big Bang Theory is saying. Out of nothing, everything. Because they don't want to believe in God. They don't want to believe in an intelligent creator. And I just can't get behind it. Personally, I can't. I understand. From what I understand too, from listening to different atheists share why they don't believe in God, most of it has nothing to do with, it doesn't really have to do with like science, honestly. It's mostly about, feeling as though either when they wanted God to show up in their life, he didn't show up the way they wanted them to. So because God didn't do something the way they wanted them to, God must not exist. They feel like God had to have failed them in some way. And so they just decided, well, God can't exist because something that I wanted God to do for me in my life, he didn't do. And therefore, God just must not exist. And that's an understandable, I can understand that being the reason, but that's mostly also rooted in your assumption or your, what should I say? I feel like that really just comes from wanting to have control over things that happen in your life. And the truth is, we don't have control over most of the things that happen in our own life. And that's just the reality of it all. And then it's just like chance. It's just like everything is by chance. And a worldview without God, I feel like, is ruled by it's ruled by kind of chaos and then chance, because you're essentially saying everything happens by chance, not because someone specifically created or designed everything, even though there's obvious design elements in our world around us, functional elements in our world around us, functional design, like there's functional things in everything that exists. The other reason I think too is that what is it? It's like non-life can't become life, can't become living. I think it's like abiogenesis is what it's called, which was previously believed to be true, but was actually proven false. You can't get life from non-life. So in order for life to exist, there had to be a life at the beginning. And you also don't have that with the Big Bang Theory. Or evolution theory, where did life come from if there wasn't anything living in the beginning? So that's another, I feel like, problem if you are asserting, everything came to exist out of nothing and nowhere. And maybe that's not something people think about too much. Like I said, I always am thinking about things like that, but I also think too, because I will say this, every time I've tried to imagine like the beginning of the world, it's like my brain is limited to understanding certain things. Like it's like I can't even fathom the beginning of the world. It's like every time I try to think past, my own world, it's like I hit a wall. It's like it's just all I see is white. All I see is blank. So it's like I know what my understanding of the world around me is limited. And it's limited because I didn't exist at the beginning of the world. And I feel like that's true for every other human being on the planet. Yet we have some people who feel as though they can assert certain things to be more factual than others. And I feel like that's where I guess the debates come from. Like if you're debating about a worldview, it's not necessarily scientific. It's definitely more of a philosophical conversation to debate your worldview or why you believe in something, why you don't believe in something, I mean, I guess that's what it is to be an apologist. I also just think too, like, I don't think my whole life centers around scientific discoveries. And me saying that, I feel like for some reason offended some people. Like, I'm sorry, I don't hold scientific discoveries as being like the groundbreaking things that I need to know about to feel like the world matters. But it's just like, I don't know if I've ever said this, but I don't think I need to understand everything about the world, right? Because what does it do for me? To truly know how the world began is really just I would say this. It matters because I do think, the evolution theory and the Big Bang and all of those things, these were theories that were created that were essentially against the idea of God. And that's what I think I was trying to explain. A lot of science that is being done today is rooted in atheism. Science did not always, science was not always, did not always claim, what am I trying to say? Being a scientist was not always, non-religious, essentially. Like religion and science existed together. And I think they still can, but I definitely believe that science pushes people to atheism because the Big Bang Theory and evolution theory are theories that basically explain the beginning of the world without God, without a creator, without all of those things. And so it definitely, in my opinion, is rooted in a atheistic worldview, these scientific theories. And, intelligent design is the theory about the beginning of the world that was rejected because people claimed it was too religious. So even though intelligent design, in my opinion, is actually logical and rational, science doesn't want to accept it as a theory in the scientific realm because they claim it's too religious. So science in a sense, is anti-religion. To a certain extent, you know, if, and I feel like science rejects God because it can't prove or disprove God. So it's like, it's automatically goes to the assumption, well, God doesn't exist because I can't prove God exists or disprove God exists. But why is that the natural, why is that the standard? To assume there isn't a God is just as much of a belief as believing in God. A disbelief is an anti-belief. I don't, what is the best way to explain it? I feel like not believing in something is like you have to be against it. So it's like, to be an atheist, you're against, you're anti. It's not like this neutral position. It's actually the anti position in a lot of ways. And I feel like I don't think people realize that when they speak about it, but it's like, I believe in something. Well, I don't believe in something. The person who doesn't believe in something is not giving you something. They're not giving you an alternative. They're just saying, I don't believe what you believe. So it's really like they don't actually stand on anything but doubt. You don't stand on anything but I don't believe. It's like all negative. It's like just the negative, the anti, the against. You're against the thing because you don't believe it. Or it's just all like the negative. Anyways, I probably think about things too much. But anyways, I feel like this was me trying to explain, like, I've tried to understand atheists and an atheistic perspective on like the world, and I just really can't. I really don't, like I said, the main thing is just like, I can't look at the world around me and see all of the intelligence, all of the design, all of the functional things, the vastness of our universe and of our planet, and really think, you know, there was, like, there has to be someone greater who created all of this. I personally wouldn't want to believe that human beings are the smartest things on the planet. I'm like, we can't be. It's not possible that we're the smartest things, because if we are, that just means our world... I'm not going to say what I was going to say. But basically, I feel more comfortable believing that... I don't even like calling God... It's not even just a higher power, the way some people will say it. I believe in a higher power. It's just like, I believe God is logical, intelligent, intentional. He created everything with a purpose, with a reason. And how the Bible describes God as being so knowledgeable that he knows the number of hairs on every single person's head. Like, God's knowledge is so vast that he knows the details of every single person. And I feel like it's a greatness that we almost can't comprehend. But I would rather put my faith in there being a God than put my faith in there is no God. Right? I feel like people don't think not believing in God still takes faith, because you're putting your faith that God doesn't exist. And I feel like you say you're not putting your faith that God doesn't exist, but you don't have faith in God. So what does that mean? And I also I don't believe the whole, like, there's just not enough proof, or there's just not enough evidence. Evidence of God is literally all around us. Your existence is proof of God. Every person is a walking miracle. This entire planet is a walking miracle. I mean, you can listen to stories, testimonies. Billions of people believe in God. You are basically asserting the billions of people who believe in God, they're just dumb, I guess. Or they just are. I mean, that's where I feel like you see like the people who think like being an atheist is so much more intellectual. Like, billions of people believing in God, and you think all those billions of people are just dumb, I guess. And quite frankly, I do feel like we need God. We need God to exist. God doesn't need us to exist. We need God to exist for a lot of things in our world to actually make sense. Personally, I feel like the idea that we can exist on a planet and it be so vast and so complex that we spend thousands of years discovering all of the things on it, and we're supposedly the most intelligent, random mutations evolved out of the random creation of the universe with no meaning or point or anything. Like, and I think that's why some people become I can't say the word nihilist. Basically, it's just like everything's meaningless, nothing matters, because essentially that you get to that conclusion when you believe everything around you is subjective. Without objective truth, everything is just subjective. Well, I think what you think and what you feel is the only thing that matters in your worldview. But I can't get behind that idea either. I feel like there has to be objectively true. Either God is objectively real or he's not. But I don't believe like you can claim that this is all just subjective. Like, belief in God I don't think is subjective. I think there's an objective reality for everyone who exists. I can, like, and that's where I feel like when people make the claim, it's like, okay, maybe if God actually doesn't exist, I wasted my life believing in a God who doesn't exist and believing that a man died for my sins so that I could have everlasting life in heaven. I wasted my life believing in something that wasn't real. But if objectively God does exist, what does that mean for all of the other people? It's just like you wasted your life. You lived your life in not believing in something that was true or having doubt in something that was actually true. So you lived your whole life was a lie. And I think like believing in God, I don't think takes anything away from me personally. I don't think it negatively impacts my life. I feel like, honestly, even if objectively God didn't exist, which I don't believe to be true, I personally think God's existence is objective. I believe that. Anyways, but if, say, I'm wrong, and I just spent my whole life believing in God, and God doesn't actually exist, it doesn't matter anyways. Because all I do is die and my life served no purpose to anyone or anything other than the purpose that I created for myself. So, people who die in horrendous ways, their life one here, there. It's like life becomes so meaningless without God, in my opinion. That's my opinion. For me, it feels like my life doesn't have meaning without God. And I don't say that to make it seem like, people can't create their own meaning in life. But truly, for me, I feel like, what is the purpose of me existing? Honestly, I think I just had existential crises are character builders, and I had it at 13. But anyways, that's one part of it. But the other part of it is just, I don't think I'm hurting myself. It's not hurting me to believe in God. There's people, and I feel like that's the other thing. Atheists are going claim they don't not believe in God, but then when someone says they believe in God, you're telling them like their God isn't real, and you're telling them they believe in fairy tales and made up things. So you're actually not just not believing in something, you are against God at that point. And I also think too, atheists who claim to have no beliefs are also telling Christians they're not allowed to pray in school, they're not allowed to do certain things because their worldview as an atheist means they can't have people around them who believe in God. It's also just like, you can't, I don't understand how people claim being an atheist means they just hold zero beliefs, but you're really just against everybody else's belief. In some cases, actually very hostile towards people who do believe in God. Some atheists can be very hostile to Christians, in my opinion. Anyways, I think that's all I have to say. I don't know if people like these videos. Again, I feel like I find this topic interesting, but that's maybe just me. I also feel like too, anytime I put atheist in the title, it's like random people who probably never watch my page just hear atheist, that's me. All the atheists are like, that's me, she's talking about me, let's go to her page. And so then I start getting all of those interactions, which if you're an atheist on my page, you are more than welcome. I have nothing against atheists. I'm literally just saying I could not be one. And I'm telling you why. I'm explaining myself why. Now, I think like atheists are making a claim when they are claiming to be an atheist. Like, I feel like people acting like being an atheist is just the norm, essentially, or like the standard. Like, everyone just starts off being an atheist. I don't actually believe that's true either. But that's another video. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Why I could not be an atheist. That's what I'm going to title this video.